All right.
It's got and like.
I said, or into. Forgot. We've been caught. Let's just go recording this. Hello? You're doing so cheap. That's good. Hello? Fantastic. Welcome, welcome everyone to the. What?
That's and done.
Welcome. A request. Okay. We're figuring it out. Welcome everyone to the ESL Grand Final of Copenhagen EUDC 2025. The 4 teams in this debate will be, in opening government, Oxford A. In opening opposition, Zagreb B. In closing government, Belgrade LC. And in closing opposition, Open University AA. I'm Uday, I'll be your chair for this round, and judging with me a number of other judges who I'll invite to introduce themselves, moving left to right.
Hi, my name is Umar.
Congrats.
Aaron, good luck to all the teams. Ashish, good luck to the teams. Have fun.
Hello, have fun. Good luck.
All right, everyone's familiar with the motions, so without further ado, I invite the Prime Minister to begin the debate. Am I audible? It is no wonder that we are one species. Evolution has been a nasty, brutish, and on a cosmic scale, short process that's created the smartest, most cunning, and ruthless apex predator this planet has known. When we expand our reach beyond our planet, our capacity to wreak havoc is only expanding. This debate is a choice between restraint and humility, and intergalactic colonialism, and I'm very proud to stand on opening government. What's the difference in this debate? That is, on our side, we abide by the Prime Directive. That means that we don't have interactions with species that haven't reached the point of intergalactic or interplanetary travel themselves. We think that's the point at which we're speaking with relative equals, and that's the point at which we're willing to engage with those civilizations and have trade, have commerce, all of these sorts of things, have alliances, intervene, discuss, all of these sorts of things on opposition, and we wouldn't engage with civilizations that are below that in terms of their development technologically. Opposition has to stand by some set of rules that do abide by that kind of engagement. 2 arguments then from our side. Firstly, as to how the Prime Directive averts massive exploitation of other civilizations and why that's incredibly important. And secondly, we're going to talk about hedging against cataclysmic risk. Let's first explain why we want to accuse and exploit other lives, why it's very likely that we have the capacity to actually entertain the possibility of engaging with these other civilizations. We would likely want to exploit and abuse, or at least many people would, and many people with the capacity to do so. Firstly, because humans are existentially arrogant. Empathy is a scarce good. Consider how little we empathize with even other mammals on this planet, who share many of the same functions with us. We all eat meat, and so basically no scruples about that. Consider how much that's enhanced when we're talking about other life forms that are basically blobs, that have very little in common with us. We will have very hard time empathizing with them. Consider additionally that the massive technological advances, the fact that we're no longer tethered to this earth, have supercharged this level of human arrogance, have made humans far more likely and far more willing to devastate other civilizations because they think that they are the center of the universe. Secondly, humans are bound by myopia. They don't see the ramifications of their actions past the point that they themselves can understand, past the point that we ourselves can feel. This is especially problematic when we're engaging with civilizations that we barely understand, that oftentimes will literally have like logical systems or thinking systems that are different to ours, that will have massively different environments in which they have grown up in. And what that means is it's very difficult for humans to actually be able to understand the ways in which their actions will harm or even affect those other civilizations. No, thank you. This means that even in the cases that humans do have genuinely good intentions, like providing access to some village, to some access to some like medical technology, what that could lead to that they don't understand is honestly things that I can't really explain to you. But for example, it could mean that rival other states or territories within that country that in ways that we don't understand are significantly disadvantaged, or that the technological balance or that the natural balance of the planet is harmed by us introducing some new molecule into that leads to massive destruction. That is, we are bound by myopia and therefore unable to consider the impacts of our actions, but also likely to want to enrich ourselves even at the expense of others because we don't think it'll be that bad. This means that we have a very strong incentive to do things like slavery, resource extraction, just plunder of civilizations, conquest, cultural erasure, and further exploitation. Why do hard rules prevent this exploitation far better than whatever soft rule set that the opposition may have? Because absolutely, the opposition is going to model in that, obviously we can't, kill life forms, we won't be able to exploit them, etc. They probably have some more sensible rule set, but any soft rule set will allow for these kinds of instances and will perpetuate that. Before moving on, back half.
For humanity to expand to the level that this debate requires, it would have to be in planets with different carbon saturations, different conditions. Humanity starts looking different. Why don't you use that empathy towards the rest of the world?
I just don't think we're hardwired to be able to extend our empathy that far. Consider that even when we're speaking with other humans, we only are able to empathize with the humans in direct proximity to us. Most people genuinely don't care or don't even think about the fact that there are billions of people currently living without access to internet, water, or food. Empathy is a scarce good. People would seek to enrich themselves at the expense of others. Why then are hard rules the way to prevent this, the Prime Directive? Firstly, because they're far, far easier to enforce. For instance, it's a lot easier for you to ensure that no spaceships go to a specific planet than to monitor what each of these commercial vessels is doing. And so what happens on opposition is that when you go to do commerce, when you build a trade outpost, for example, you set up the trade outpost, and maybe then it makes sense to start engaging in agriculture. And maybe then it makes sense to start employing some of the locals to help with the agriculture. And this kind of sequence leads to the possibility of people engaging in the kind of exploitation that I've explained, because it's just far harder for you to monitor these things, especially considering the cosmic level or just the intergalactic level scale of operations in this particular case. But secondly, we prevent these kind of ideologies that do want to exploit others from forming in the first place. Consider, for instance, how colonialism sort of originated, where missionaries would go and come back telling tales of resource-rich areas that led to other people being incentivized to go to those areas in the first place and continue and engage in extraction. But also consider the fact that they have the capacity to do that on the opposition because the rules don't hard bind them to not do so. On our side, when you don't have that initial interaction, you're unable to spread the line. Thank you. You're unable to persuade others to go and help you. You're unable to even desire and have that kind of greed that we think characterizes humanity on the opposition. Overall, I think this is an incredibly important thing because it means that we prevent massive scale exploitation, massive scale disaster, plunder, all of these kinds of things. If you thought colonialism was bad, it was, and it's going to be upheld, of course, it's going to apply to a lot more planets. But the second argument we bring forward is that even if it is the case that you genuinely help those civilizations, you build one big civilization that is far more prone to cataclysmic risk. What's the problem? On opposition, you centralize civilization. Because when you spread technology, when you help someone else discover medicine, for example, discover intergalactic travel, there's no need for that planet to develop their own methods for intergalactic travel. You end up being reliant on the same technology to a large degree, and therefore reliant on the same natural resources like petrol or whatever it is, hydrogen crystals, that fund that kind of technology. Each leader specifically doesn't have the incentive to actually change this because it's very costly and they probably won't see the manifestation of the risk I'm going to talk to you about within their lifetimes. Comparatively, when you let each civilization develop to the point of intergalactic travel or above, it's more likely that they do so in more different ways, and so you're less reliant on specific methods and specific resources. What's the problem with being centralized? It opens you up to massive cosmic scale risk. Notice that the cosmos is likely to continue for at least infinite time, right? We have no reason to believe it will end before that. And what that means is that anything that can happen will happen. Resources may run out. The planet that produces the majority of a specific resource may enter war. Like the more advanced technology we have, the more advanced our weapons are. And what this means is it's very likely that opposition is exposing the entirety of the cosmos to cataclysmic risk that only is averted with the Prime Directive. For all of these reasons, opening government.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. And now I'd like to invite Leader of the Opposition.
I do have a bit of a preamble first. I would first like to thank all the other speakers in this debate. You are all amazing, and you should all be extremely proud of your achievement. If you are stressed about winning this debate, the ESL final, let me assure you, it's very doable. Winning it against Zagreb, though, is a whole other thing, but that's not to be. Also, as always, I have a line of thank yous to get through, because I did not get here alone, not last year, and not this year. Despite what you might have heard about our day one, I could have not done this without Paola. She kept us rolling throughout the outcomes. And I could not have done this without the support of my friend Lucy, who helped supporting me and gave me strength. And I could not have done it without my lovely girlfriend Rina, who you might remember from last year as the kidney thief. I'd also like to have a big thank you for Tin and the rest of the Zagreb community for always being a support. And a big shout out to the Porto Debate Association. Go to Porto next year, guys. It's the best one.
You should come. And already? The works, except fine.
Okay.
Can tell us through what's
The POI I want to ask opening government is, would you not prefer to live in a world where aliens came, killed Hitler in 39? I would, and I think most of us here would. Know that the cosmos is already cataclysmic. Know what we do to ourselves, the suffering we impose on each other. It's irrational to assume that other beings in the cosmos also have these incentives to do harm to each other. We have a unique capacity to prevent these things. Know that not everybody does space travel, right? It's probably very expensive, it's prohibitive. We have the capacity to prevent some things by imposing other laws. Slavery is already illegal. It's likely to continue being illegal in the future. So we probably have methods of punishing people who try to do the worst kinds of examples that opening government wants to talk about, because we still have some laws that currently we apply to all humans. We're likely to apply to all sentient, intelligent beings, right? What happens from opening opposition and why Star Trek was wrong about the Prime Directive? Firstly, some framing of the quantity of technology and morality and medicine that we can apply to people. Note how many people die from the preventable diseases. 3 weeks ago, my grandma died of cancer. I wish that she hadn't. There is billions of grandmas on Earth dying of cancer, but there is an unquantifiable amount of grandmas everywhere dying of preventable diseases, of starvation, of hunger, of malaria, of things that we can prevent with our advanced technology because this is in the far distant future and we keep getting better and better at it. That means that we can prevent things such as people having to slave away for 15 hours a day just to afford food. We can implement post-scarcity societies where people can access their own definition of happiness rather than having to toil and toil under the harsh realities that we exist in. If they want to say that reality is brutish and short, it does not have to be. We can extend it and we can eliminate the brutes because the brutes come from nature and the brutes come from exploitation. All of the things we can prevent because we are technologically much more capable than these people, because we have the ability to prevent all of the things killing them. We have the ability to give them access to energy, to drinkable water, to food, to help them learn how to farm, to help them learn to avoid their own mistakes. The debate then becomes, what is the incentive to do better things? Humanity on the net has an incentive to do well. Couple of things. One, we are unlikely to try to go to these planets and exploit them for their natural resources. Why? Because this is not Earth and colonialism and Spanish people with ships. This is the vastness of space. If you cannot get it from this planet, there is a billion other planets where you can get your other crystals because the vastness of space is infinite and we have all the time in the world to explore it. Secondarily, if there is a vast number of other civilizations, that means that some of these probably already specializing in mining time crystals or something else, and we probably have the ability to trade for them. Because again, we are not limited by the scarcity of things on Earth, meaning we can get them the things that they want, and they were probably willing to give us, because what else are they going to do with them other than trade? Thirdly, we also probably want to trade with these less developed people. Just because they're less developed does not mean that we're incapable of trading with them. There are other things. Maybe they already want to trade the ore that they don't need. Maybe they don't care for petroleum or things like that. They are maybe willing to work on our ships. They have other things that are intangible and do not depend on the vastness of the civilization. They have works of art that we probably want to experience. They have philosophy that they are willing to teach us. We want to learn from their culture and we want to see what is theirs. And likely we're going to err on the side of caution because we are aware of how easily we can distribute ecosystems and things like that. So we're likely to do this slowly. We don't have to give them all of the tech in the world in 5 minutes. We can do this over decades. We can implement it so people understand. And we're unlikely to be selective with it by giving it to one tribe and not giving it to the next. Because we have a reason to do this in such a way. Now note also a thing that hopefully government misreads in the info slide. The Prime Directive does not prevent you from interacting with less developed groups. It only prevents you from helping them. So all of the things that they say, we will prevent species from even going there, do not work on their side of the house, at least within the scope of the motion. So doing things such as bringing hostile bacteria also exists on their side of the house. But on our side of the house, if we do bring hostile bacteria, we also have the capability to give them medicine against it. They have to live with the fact that they bring the Spanish flu to another whole planet of people and then watch them die. The reason why Star Trek did the Prime Directive is to avoid fans' questions about why isn't everybody doing space travel. The horrible reality is that Captain Kirk has to walk away from 1 billion planets being genocided by 1 billion maniacs and say, this is fine. I could have prevented them. They were moral living people and I had to watch them get slaughtered, murdered, and quartered because this is something that I am okay with, even though it was very preventable. A horrible dread on all of humanity and an eternal staining on all of our collective souls that would happen if you prevent all of these things. Now, note, cumulatively, the amount of utility that we create is so vastly overwhelms everything else in the debate. Because the amount of utility is the amount of all of the people that we're able to save across all of space and all of our journey and all of the technology, right? We don't have incentives to attack because it is simpler to do trade than to do war against a civilization. Because it takes time to murder a whole civilization. It does not take time to offer them something that they like in order for them to give us something that they like, that we like. Closing, what's up?
Very narrow rebuttal. Notice how difficult it is to transfer diseases from yourself to a fish. Can you imagine how hard it is to transfer it to a completely different organism from another planet?
I have no idea. This is a bit extremely speculative. It could be possibly very easy, it could be possibly very hard. Maybe they're similar to us, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But if we do happen to do it, I want us to be able to cure it as well. Okay, cool. Now, a thing that you might want to call it, we might want to call it practical because it ultimately these two things are the same thing, right?
You have a duty to warn people against danger. So if I see somebody walking next to a cliff, I have a duty to protect them because the disability that they may face when they fall is very great. Especially if it comes at very low cost to myself as an individual, right? If I see a drowning child, I have a duty to take them out, even if my very nice suit gets ruined in the process. The cost of doing this is very, very low to humanity. Helping people, eliminating space Hitlers is very easy to do when you're so technologically above space Hitler. But limiting, preventing others is not only from us. Note that if we discovered space travel, and it emphasizes a lot if the nation did also discover space travel, there is more advanced people than us whose incentives are unknown to us. There will be a warmongering group of space people who will try to colonize them. We can prevent that. We can try to stop them. We can give them the tools to defend themselves should one of them arise. And know that in the vastness of time and space, one will arrive. We allow civilization through tool of defense. We also warn them from natural disasters that might occur, like a meteor hitting them, and we learn of the mistakes we made.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. I invite the Deputy Prime Minister.
Hello everyone. Before my speech, I'd like to take this opportunity to shamelessly advertise a competition I'm organizing alongside Charity. It's called the Oxford Charity Open. Look it up on Facebook, please. It'll take like half a minute. It's a one-day comp in October. We're fundraising for a charity called Solace Women's Aid. It's a charity providing a variety of services for victims, mainly women and children of domestic and sexual violence. This includes shelters, this includes education, this includes therapy, advocacy, legal rights, etc. I would very much appreciate it if you could attend our competition. We promise the CAs in the tab are going to be excellent, and you're going to have a great time, and it's going to be very well organized. Also, I'd like to thank everyone who helped me get here. You know who you are, so thank you.
But opening opposition is afraid of some cosmic monstrosity going around enslaving others, which we need to stop. They don't realize that we are that cosmic monstrosity. They have never responded as to why we as humans are horrible, and they just don't compare their cases. Very simply, we think us as humans are bound by many, many flaws. Our history is one of brutality. Our history is of one where people who look slightly different, very slightly different if we're being honest with each other, have been dehumanized. We've convinced ourselves that they are less than scum, and we've convinced ourselves that their exploitation and their slaughter is fine for our benefit. They tell me that we're going to impose human rights and other such regulations on them. I'm sorry, we currently don't respect human rights when we conduct war, when we remove people's rights because they look different, because they're women, minorities, etc. Their case needs to contend with the monstrosity that is humanity and that is sustainability. First question. I'm just going to weigh why I don't think you have strong obligations, or I'll even posit at all an obligation to help these people. Look, I think it is substantially more wrong to kill than to let someone live a life of suffering. I don't think the scope of moral obligations is cosmic or infinite. I don't think it's even quite large. Currently, all over here are listening to, judging, or speaking it finally. You could be helping children in the developing world. You could have donated your reg fee to save the child of someone, but you didn't, because we all know moral obligations don't go that far. If opposition convinces you of that, Carol, I expect you to stand up and leave and not be able to vote for them, because that is the logical implication of what they will tell you. We think the obligations you have are not cosmic or infinite. That is a sign of the egoism humanity possesses. That is a sign of the lack of humility Leo tells you about. The reason for you is simple. We just think it's not your business. You have nothing to do with the harm which happened towards them, especially in the massive cosmic scale of the universe. I don't think you had something to do with the suffering of the people in the developing world, but if you did, that is what creates the obligation. That's why you might have an obligation to intervene to help a child next to you, because, as you know, the Joker said, we live in a society, and that is what creates certain obligations. If I will have certain communal interactions with people, that I have certain expectations from us. And the reason why I think you shouldn't expand moral obligations to that scale is because they are massively coercive. They will be disrespecting your agency as a person if it will be moral and if it will be expected of you to go help and intervene in someone else. I just don't think you would intervene in that case. And I think it's even more not your business when you have nothing to do with the fact that these beings even came into existence. Comparatively, any level of harm we directly cause is morally abhorrent, it is barbaric. And Neil tells you about the pillage, plunder, and rape of civilizations, about people who do not understand or can look. I don't think aliens are morally significant. They probably do feel suffering, they probably do have a degree of intelligence, which makes them morally significant. Now, opposition tells you to adjudicate this debate on utility. But I don't think that's how you should adjudicate moral obligations. Because if that were the case, they should happily stand by people, let's say, watching someone change so long as they never realize, because the utility of the pervert is greater than the not knowing of the person being perverted on. It's also impossible to add up utility. There is nothing concrete about why suffering or my happiness from winning any debate is more or less important than someone suffering from something else. So I just don't think that's how morals work. I don't think that is something they should stand by. Why do we then think you are likely to harm others? The first thing I'd like to point out is that we think you are horribly unable to understand them. They tell you we'd like some people to come and stop Hitler doing bad things. That would possibly be good. But who is Hitler when you're aliens? Like, if an alien looks at us, Hitler's gonna be fucking McDonald's, right? Like realistically, they have all of the things we would describe as morally abhorrent, and you would trample on something that group considers morally important and a part of their way of life. And I think there would be substantial resistance to the imposition of your moral norms, to the impositions of these things. Look at, for instance, the people of North Sentinel Island and how they resist whenever humans ever try to make an approach to interact with. And again, these are the same species. We cannot illustrate how different these things are because we cannot conceptualize them. This could look like people with tendrils. This could look like beings which are formed not of like carbon as we are, but of like other gases which communicate not with speech but with sounds or smells or things we can't even understand. It is impossible for you to know what you are doing in that situation. It's impossible for you to know what suffering looks like. And you explain why you have very few scruples against exploiting these people. But there are substantial reasons why these scruples will be needed. When you have strong perverse incentives as humanity to exploit these groups. First of all, the fact that capitalism still probably continues to exist. Properly. It's a pretty effective economic system. We hope it doesn't go away, right? The implication is simple. There will become strong corporations like the East India Company, all of these things, historically, which will have a very strong incentive to lobby against the provisions opposition talks about. We prevent the creation of these corporations when we don't let people go and we don't let people go set up shop, etc. They have no interest or capacity to resist this. Second of all, religious people. Religiosity will probably continue existing into the future, and people will continue being nutters, thinking that what is good for the people you don't understand is Christ, because Christ is Lord, Christ is good, and that is what we must impose on them. We think these are horrible. Why can't you regulate? I think, first of all, the broadness of your civilization makes it very difficult for you to enforce. Cosmic scale, difficult. Second, the more reliant you are on different parts of the civilization for resources, the less control you have over these groups. That's why even the UK government had a hard time regulating some of its colonial enterprises across its history.
Closing. You say there is a danger from centralizing. That danger probably also applies to humans. As you correctly point out, humans have no prior obligations. Why shouldn't they self-defend by acquiring the resources they need in order to continue surviving?
We can, the cosmos is infinite. We can go to places where there aren't people living. I'm sorry, Locke's argument on the state of nature, that there are so many parts of the world where people don't live. It's actually true in space, right? So you can just go do that. I'm sorry. More reasons then as why humans will think are horrible. First of all, I think we were motivated by internal discontent. We compare ourselves with others. The richest in our society, that is where we're setting our standards. We also suffer from certain cognitive biases. The fact that we get used to what we have, therefore we want more and more. I think that is why we're going to crave exotic things. That is why we're going to crave poaching aliens. Panel, chimps are 20,000 years of evolution away from an intelligent civilization, yet we poach them. Yet they look very similar to us. Yet they have the same anatomy, more or less, as us. What makes you think we're going to have any more empathy for the poor people of foreign lands? And I think that even good people can be motivated to do horrible things by thinking they are doing it from a greater good. But what I've explained to you today, Pan, that the greater good is ultimately intangible. We cannot understand the different cultures. People will not be able to understand them, and therefore they will trample upon them. They will do exactly what humanity did for the first 10,000 years of its existence. Opposition needs to explain to you what is so fundamentally different. Attention.
Thank you to Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. I now invite Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Can you hear me fine? Okay. Firstly, I want to thank Lau for borrowing me the dress. And most importantly, I would like to thank ORCOM of this competition, Laura and Martha and the rest of the ORCOM, as well as Access team. You were so wonderful to me, helping me come here and have normal experience, even though I had some problems. So thank you so much for that, and I hope that like future tournaments can learn from you, and we can make this space inclusive for everyone. That being said, the main problem of the opening government is that they're talking about the worst instances of human behavior from a very distant history. Empirically, humanity has gained empathy. Empirically, we fought war to abolish slavery, even though this was not something that was practically good for us. Empirically, we have created universal human rights and all these kinds of things, right? So firstly, I'm going to talk about why humans are empathetic. Secondly, I'm going to talk about why we are going to see them as somebody close to human, these aliens. And thirdly, I'm going to say why, even if we are selfish, this can still be a positive experience. And then we're going to have some strenuous responses. So firstly, why humans are empathetic. Firstly, the reason why you have like intrinsic empathy and why we have seen this development is because humans are able to extrapolate feelings and pain and experience and suffering of other sentient beings onto themselves. You see somebody else suffer and you immediately start thinking, what if this is something that's happening to me? This is why we are crying when we see children very distant from us, very different from us, and all these kinds of things. This is why we have developed the concept of human rights, because we have realized that suffering is disgusting and this is not something that we should engage in. And got to check this panel. Empirically, this is true. Empirically, I am correct and opening government is lying. We have fought war to abolish slavery. We have fought to create universal human rights. We are giving benefits to people who are poor, even though strategically this is not something that's benefiting us. And now I know what you're going to say, oh, but we are still fighting war. We still have things like that, like exploitation, all these kinds of things. This is a very distant future. If the humanity has progressed to the way that it has been progressing so far, we can only assume that it's going to keep progressing the way that it has been progressing now, because opening government gives you zero reasons why we are going to take a U-turn on human rights and human empathy and development of like philosophy and all these kinds of things. That's when we have to assume that in the future we are going to have even better understanding of these things. Secondly, why are we going to treat them as somebody close to humans, not as subhumans or like animals, as opening government say? Because these are clearly what makes human worth and gives human value: sentience. We realize that these aliens are likely going to be sentient because these are civilizations. If somebody has created civilization, that means that they have sentience. They are thinking, they are considering, how can we improve life? How can we create things? Why do we exist in this universe and all these kinds of things? This is what made them closer to human. That's why we are able to empathize. That's why opening government's example, oh, we are eating animals, is not working because we can't empathize with animals because they're not sentient like us, right? Next, I want to talk about why even if humans are selfish, this is the best case scenario of opening government. This is, we have a strategic incentive, a selfish incentive to make this a good thing. Firstly, just because they're less developed than us, that does not mean that they're not able to fight back. If we try to do colonialism or like try to extrapolate their resources and do slavery and things like that, they're likely to fight back. You most likely want to avoid this. You most likely want to avoid war because I presume that like waging war with a civilization in the space is probably likely incredibly expensive, right? So I don't think that this is very strategic, right? But secondly, if you do this, you're going to destroy everything and you're not going to gain any kind of benefits. But thirdly, thirdly, just because they're less developed, it does not mean that they don't have a technology that we might benefit from, right? It does not mean that they don't have a thing that we might benefit from, right? Which means that like it is in our incentive to actually, cooperate with them and all these kinds of things. But last, and this is very important, we most likely don't know enough about them. We don't know if they're hiding weapons. We don't know if they, have a nation that is more civilized than them, that can destroy us, that, they are allies with, and all these kinds of things, right? Like today in the status quo, you have very small undeveloped nations having, being backed by big actors like Russia and China and all these kinds of things. It is likely that the same thing is going to be applying in the context of space. We don't know this, which means it's not strategic to exploit them, right? This is incredibly strategic. But also, because these are sentient beings, it is likely that concepts of universal rights are going to be applying onto them as well. Okay, next, I would like to give a little bit more extraneous responses.
Stop the choice.
They say that we do not understand them, right? The problem with this is that that we don't understand them enough to help them. I mean, look, like if they're less developed than us, then presumably like they're in a stage of development that we can comprehend if we are more developed than them, right? And they say that like it is that we can't enforce, human rights and like with private corporations going there. But I'm pretty sure like that we can do investigation, we can have, like people who are going to be checking and all these kinds of things, right? And they say that they're going to be more prone to cataclysmic risks because they're more reliant on us, right? The problem with this is that like, I don't think that this is true, right? Like we are already sharing technologies with less developed countries. They adapt them onto their system. They find a way to develop them on their own, right? And all these kinds of things. So I really don't think that this argument is relevant, right? The next thing that I want to talk about is like what DPM says that people like today are waging wars and all these kinds of things. We are waging war because we only have one planet. We have finite resources and all these kinds of things. In this distant future, when we explore pretty much like the whole space, there's probably not going to be need to wage wars. You can always go on a different planet, right? And all these kinds of things. Next, I want to talk about how it's going to be good because we can prevent catastrophes that happen in our civilization. But before that, closing.
Look, if they have powerful allies, of course, that's something that you will know about the same way you know if Myanmar is aligned with China. Come on.
Yeah, like if we just discovered this completely new nation, we don't know, presumably, so like it's better not to do it. Okay, so like if this civilization is in the stage of development, they probably have concepts that we had when we were primitive humans, like racism, like sexism, like fascism. They probably have their own alien Hitler and all these kinds of things, right? Populism and these kinds of things, right? If we go to them and we tell them, look guys, this is what happened. We had a very similar leader that you guys had and it like started a war, it ruined our country. If we introduce them to the concept of like against racism, universal rights and all these kinds of things, they're likely to understand that because we are going to tell them, look guys, this is what happened with us. It led to catastrophic events, and that's why you should not be implementing here. This is a massive impact on the utilitarian scale because we are preventing problems that have happened with us. But also, they're probably developing their own medicine and technology, and we can help them with that. They don't have to test medication and have people dying in the trial process. We can just tell them, look, here is the medication. You do not have to go through these spooks or, like, for example, nuclear places like exploding all of a sudden and all these kinds of things, right? We can prevent all of these catastrophes when we help these people. Humans are empathetic. They have strategic incentive to cooperate with them. I've never been more proud to be an OO.
Thank you to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition for that speech. I now invite a Member for Government.
Okay, am I audible here? Yes. Okay, before I start, I want to take a moment to thank the people who made it possible for me to be here. First to my family, who always supporting me, and a special thanks to my dad that drove Novak to Budapest in the middle of the night in order for him to be here. Then to my debate partner and bestie Novak, I'm so happy that we're doing this together. To my debate coaches for all the patience and effort they put in throughout the years. To the entire Serbian debate community for giving us energy so we could persist. And last but not least, to all people of Serbia that have been fighting for freedom and justice for months. And Op says we will help them learn, we will teach them to do better. But notice that empathy soon becomes frustration, helping soon becomes imposing, and fear takes best of us even if we mean well. Beliefs humanity will have before interacting with these other civilizations is twofold. It's either superiority, which means that they will believe, okay, I'm going to enlighten them, I'm going to show them the way they should live, we are more advanced and they're just some savages. But second of all, it can be fear. We don't know before we go to their planets, to their galaxies and stuff, if they're friends or foe. They look completely different. It's nothing that we have seen before. It's basically we don't have the way to communicate with them. We don't share the language, don't share the customs, don't share the cues. So there is really hard for us to read what their intention is. But also, please notice that the opposition assumes that these other civilizations will just welcome human interference coming from the sky and just giving the medicine and then them being healed. If someone entered my home in the middle of the night, I wouldn't offer them coffee, even if they brought me maybe chocolate to complement it. We see that these people are much more likely to be terrified, to be paranoid. So basically, they see these completely different beings in different shapes, colors, with different language, with some insane technology that they can't comprehend. And of course, they are afraid. Also, you don't, not now. Also, you have no way to explain to them if you mean well or not. So they will probably assume like their primal instincts. So if we assume that they are sentient beings, as all wants to portray, then they probably will be extremely afraid because they are fighting for their survival and stuff like that. But also, even if humans don't do anything right now, we say that they will have a paranoia of someone coming and conquering them. Because they are not sure, don't do it verbally, because they are not sure that there are other galaxies, they are probably catastrophizing and stuff like that. What it means? That all alleged support that opposition wants to provide is going to be rejected. These civilizations are going to be trying to defend and to basically escape this quote-unquote helping of the human race and stuff like that. So they don't unlock their benefits without basically explaining how and why these civilizations will want to accept this. But other than superiority that human can feel, as I said, there is fear. So what happens with the fear? Response of humanity of this frustration that other civilizations would have is probably justifying conquering them, because humanity doesn't know if this civilization will do uprising, if they will basically defeat them in some distant future. Then it's really, they don't have to be evil or something like that. They can really easily justify this through self-preservation mechanism. If we don't conquer them, maybe in the future they will conquer us. Look, we tried to help them, but basically they are not letting us because they are beyond repair and beyond help. So basically we say that even we don't need to assume that humanity will be exploitative, evil, or anything like that. If humanity is anything like it is today, it will first of all fight for their own existence. Also, please notice that we really don't depend on them using resources or something like that, because if they have the resources to go to these other galaxies and stuff like that, they can probably go to uranium and take diamonds or something like that. Yes, but what is the response on humanity if they come not in fear but rather with the want to help these people, as all is nicely saying that. So you're trying to help someone and they're rejecting it. It's much more likely that it will lead to your frustration. Look at these ungrateful savages that basically don't want our help, and we are here coming in really good spirit. You basically then are going to take it out on them, and that is what is unlocking OMG's benefits, because we are not depending on humanity being evil, just human nature starting keeping to be as it is today. So we say that you will probably take it out on them, you will probably oppress them in some way, or you will just, shock them terribly, and then leave them and let them fear some other species coming and conquering them for the rest of their eternity. But before I continue, let's do opening.
Let's assume that these people are not spread. If they have angry and expansionist leaders, should we not put them in prison to prevent them attacking us or others down the line? We must maximize all utility, theirs and ours, now and in the future.
Yes, but what am I saying is your argument is what will be used to justify basically conquering every single planet that humans go onto. Because always it will be, look at their weird customs or weird leaders or this thing that is really suspicious. So we need to conquer them, we need to kill them so they don't conquer us. As you said, amazing point for us. But also, we say, why we care about suffering of these beings? We say that they are the ones that are feeling pain and fear. They don't maybe have the intelligence and development of our own, but they have their own way. They have the unique set of experiences and feelings. So what we are doing is basically destroying life as they know and making them, destroying the life as they know, at best, but at worst, we are making them suffer. We are making them be afraid. We are making them basically spreading pain for their future generations to come, even if we leave that planet without exploiting and stuff like that. Look, there is two ways that humans can go onto this. It's either to think that they are superior and try to impose something on them, and then become really frustrated when these people are not as grateful as humans think they should be, or they're more likely to be afraid, as always trying to point out, and it will be really easy for them to justify why they need to destroy and conquer this civilization. This leads to cosmic scale suffering and destruction. Please, CG.
Thank you, Council Member. I'd now like to invite Opposition Member.
In terms of thank yous, beyond what I said last year in the final, you can watch that if you want, I want to, again, shout out Amitai, incredible debater. I don't know jack shit about African currency. I also want to shout out my parents who watch these finals when I send them the live streaming time. I didn't this time. They ask me how high did I break and how deep and what, they know all the, they follow along. They're old, but they try. It's amazing. I love that. That's it for thank yous. I also, there's a few things I want to say before my speech. Never mind.
Evidence 3. 2. For arguments, first, we want to resolve the top left clash of whether humans have empathy and behave good or that they have bad intentions. We're going to give 2 reasons. We're going to explain reputation, and we're going to explain what unlocks empathy when you see it in other species. Secondly, we're going to talk about conflict, danger to humans, and intergalactic security and cooperation. Basically a NATO case. Let's get into the first argument then. When humans behave well and have good intentions, my first reason is reputational program. If you're belligerent, if you feel like you're trying to colonize new nations, to gather your own power, if you're endangering the stability of the galaxy by recklessly empowering bad actors and being uncareful about it, then more advanced civilizations see you as a threat to galactic stability. The most obviously implies that these more advanced civilizations
exist, it is very dangerous for you to try and upset them. But secondly, you also want to have a good reputation among intelligent civilizations that at least currently, temporarily, are less advanced than you. I want you to know that they could advance on their own to become interplanetary. They could be advanced by another interplanetary civilization instead of by yourself. If they remember you as the person who came, who saw their pain, and who ran, then they hate you. Specifically, you're the one to blame. Secondly, though, I want to win the top half question of whether they're similar enough to you, by explaining what unlocks empathy. I want to note that we are designed by evolution to avoid others' pains. Evolution designs us to cooperate so that we can grow together, and therefore, we have to care strongly about others' pains for our own very selfish reasons. We have to be kind in order to generate goodwill. We have to avoid harming others so that we don't face repercussionary actions from either that person or from bystanders who fear us. We have to protect others from pain so that they protect us. And note, evolution designed us to avoid other species' pains too. When we feed the hungry wolf instead of throwing the stone at it, it domesticates into the loyal dog, who scouts, hunts, protects us. When we attack it, it attacks back. The same thing is true for the cats that protect us from the rats, for the hawks that help us hunt, for the ravens and pigeons that can transfer messages for us, and for the horses. We do feel empathy for other species whenever we perceive them as feeling pain. We won't eat cats and dogs. They're very good at picking their feelings for us. We see them as friends or even as fur babies. And over time, as we learn about the intelligence of other animals, like parrots and dolphins and crows, then like all of you, feel in great opposition to eating or hurting these animals. We feel in opposition to whale hunting. Even with pigeons or mice, when we see them trapped, we have an urge to freeze them. When a hungry fox comes to our doorstep, we rise to feed it. This is not because it's necessarily direct in our incentive, but because it was in the incentive of our ancient ancestors to develop this empathy to any creature who experiences pain. Moving on to my second extension, on conflict and danger to humans and other nations. I want to say several things here. I want to explain that A, there are some specific bad nations who should litter, and it's easy to tell who and how. Second, that some civilizations can hate you when you interact with them and not interfere. And third, on creating alliances, furthering human and galactic point. Studying then later, with why you should use specific bad nations and why it's Richard, go ahead.
Yeah. Opening opposition agrees that many of the other advanced civilizations will be violent themselves. So why would they hold you to account when you're violent, exploitative, and engage in plunder?
You need to prove that they're going to be violent yourself. Some of them are violent, some of them are not violent. We think that likely that they're not violent, are trying to talk to each other for reasons I analyze later in my speech on alliances, and we think that even the violent or aggressive ones see you as a threat if you are similarly a colonializing power who is becoming more powerful and could threaten them. Let's talk about conflict and danger to humans and others. These are specific bad nations. We think most intelligent species are good for the reasons that I analyzed for you above. To think that these are true for any species that relies and depends on cooperation. And note that it scales up, right? I have to be able to cooperate with my family outside in order to be able to survive. In order to create a civilization, I have to be able to cooperate with people that I don't personally meet, that I don't personally know. I have to cooperate with other members of my species that I will never meet from millions or billions of them, which means that they experience the same pressures. Only in very extreme kinds and circumstances do species become evil. First, it's when the environment is so cruel and unforgiving that civilization can only develop through harsh slavery and immense control. Second, it's when the species themselves are so self-sufficient as individuals. For instance, they can defend themselves, they can auto-procreate. It's individuals, when individuals don't immediately lose out and die when they face collectivized groups, then they can grow to be pure sociopaths. And society would then only arise when the strong fully enslave the weak for their own interests. When we see a people who are genocide on each other non-stop, when we see a people who are unable to experience empathy toward each other, we know they are a threat. When do we know that we should attack? When we think that they can catch up, and now is the time to act. When Hitler remilitarized the war, when he invaded Sudetenland and Poland, that was the time to stop it. That was the time that France and the UK could have taken him down, and when they didn't, it was too late. Know that catastrophes can be very quick scientifically. Think of our own exponential growth and economic prosperity or in technology. 70 years between the invention of computers and AI, and within a few years we'll have AHI. 5 years between the first nuke being developed and enough nukes existing from a period of turn. We think that not only can they self-develop, they can also be developed by other civilizations. To find a crashed spaceship, there could be some international pirate, maybe a human defector, a human who does not cooperate with this prime incentive, a pirate, a slave, or an extractor, lands on the planet and gets access to all this power. We think that now is the time that we are able to limit them. Now is the time we're able to eliminate them before there is threats. Second, mentions that self-specific civilizations will go to hate us when we interact with them, but not intervene. Why? First, we're heavily disappointing them because they developed this great hope and we failed their hope. And then that means that for any later pain they experience that they think we could have prevented, they blame us. But secondly, they fear us. Why are we withholding aid? Why are we withholding support? Is it because we want to keep them weaker than us? Is it because as soon as they become powerful, we're going to attack them? All of this means that these civilizations are likely to develop specific hate and fear against us, which is going to lead them to demilitarize Kuperk and to try and take the split of finally invading alliances, furthering human and intergalactic safety. Note, this not only protects us, it protects the whole world. Why do you think you're able to start alliances? First, it's because of the mutual evolutionary incentives and reputational incentives that I analyzed above. It was also because you have the mutual defense incentives. The more people you have cooperating, the stronger you are. Why do larger alliances get to avoid galactic wars far better than small civilizations? It's because you have far greater strength together compared to any individual bad actor. It's because you all defend at once instead of fighting one at a time. It's the same as NATO, where no single country can be attacked because all of them would defend all at once. And it's because none of them can attack each other. The Intergalactic Federation is the strongest actor. And in order to take over the galaxy, you have to beat the Galactic Federation. We think that you're able to create alliances when you cooperate with the good actors, when you empower them and when you strengthen them. It's important to be able to trade with them so that they're able to advance, to give them the technology, to share with them philosophy, to give them their resilience to other bad actors, and to make them realize that their safety and security depends on their cooperation with you. I want to unpack this. First note, humans need this in order to avoid extinction and dangers to that. And this is the most likely place that we'll actually do these interventions. OG's message is that humans matter most and should not care about any other species, which is why the speed's OG. But we also think it protects the entire galaxy from bad actors. It ensures all those benefit there, because we don't know if the medicine will help them in the same way, but we do know that death was going to hurt them in the same way. For all of these reasons, go with close in opposition.
Thank you, opposition member. I now invite Government Whip.
Just a moment here. We were told to give intro speeches by 9 a.m. so they can be checked, but honestly, I was asleep and very nervous for the finals, so I will do an uncontroversial one and take the punishment later. Sorry guys, wherever you are, but promise, not controversial. Sorry, what? I'm not gonna miss this. You can punish me. Without from that, whatever.
So, a few things. First, I want to thank my wonderful partner, Katarina. She's amazing, not only like as a debate partner, but as a friend, she's even better. I want to thank my community, and I think they're simply great. They are great, not only the ones that are here in this room, but the ones that are not, all of them who have taught me debate, who helped me, but also the people who give me the privilege to teach them debate, if that makes sense. They are just as good, and I value them so much. Why not say it? You have to listen to me, so one more minute. Since we were talking about charity, why not use the opportunity since like 1,000 people listening? I think we live in a very oftentimes fucked up world where the life of a person can be saved by $4,000, $5,000, like the price of a used car, not even a pretty good used car, or like 4 coffees in Denmark. It's true, I have gone bankrupt. And I don't really think that people have an obligation to like give or anything. But I want you guys to just try it out. Like 1%, 2% something, give like 10 euros to malaria nets. You can get like for 10 euros, you can get 2 malaria nets that protects 4 people. I think it's really an amazing feeling, and I do it for selfish reasons. And it's not like I give who knows how much, but it feels great to give. So I would like to inspire you, someone listening, if there's at least one person, to like try it out, seek out these causes that are very effective, that help the people in most vulnerable places on our planet. Because do it for selfish reasons, because it really gives a sense of meaning. And I know because I lost a final to meaning twice on EUDC. So yeah, I know a little bit about it, but I'm not gonna leave it. Okay, now I said everything, I will take the punishment. And I think they like me. So it will be okay. Oh, so many papers, wait, here. Oh, this one's for you guys. I'll start. That one is line.
Just
Space is a dark forest, and the one constant we have is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the foreign, fear of being wiped out by something you don't understand and cannot predict. That is the state that any interstellar civilization is in if it is surviving, and that is the mindset that they have. Not because they are good or bad, because they are motivated by self-preservation. If they were not, they would be dead a long time ago. Let's answer closing. Closing tells you, like IR case, your reputation and so on, so intergalactic, United Nations, whatever. Notice, panel, where does your reputation get worse? As long as you harm one of these civilizations intentionally, as long as they rebel, as long as you're forced to put them down or exploit them. That is one time it has to happen for the entire galaxy to see you as a warmonger, to see you as a bad actor. This is much worse than not interfering. That explains that. Then they tell you, look at, and this is both of them, look at humans. They have loyal dogs and cats. It's so nice. What do we do to pigs? Why do we treat them so badly? Cows, chickens, we don't treat them because we hate them. We treat them like that because it is useful, not even for our survival, but for our pleasure and so on. But also notice, like even if we would not, we are more sentient, we are vegans and all of these things. Notice how we treat animals or any other being or other human beings at the moment when we are afraid. How do we justify it? You all know that. It's justified if you feel something is threatening you, it is justified to take it out or to exploit it for your benefit. That is so ingrained in us. And this is regardless. That's why self-defense is a mechanism that we have that we consider moral. That is how humanity functions. It is not about whether it is good or bad. We don't know whether it will be good or bad, and so on. So I don't see how their case works. Let's talk a little bit more about our case. Notice the state of aliens, of us in the future. First, more reasons why they will be terrified of you. You have come from the sky. Like, notice if it happened to us, how most people would behave. You are vastly more powerful than them. They cannot trust you. You speak not only a foreign language, you communicate differently. You look completely different. The state that they will be in is not only fear, but that is far more likely to militarize them, which closing claims to care about. Because notice that humans, when do we go into arms races? We go when we don't know what the other side will do, when we fear them. That's where we stockpile nuclear weapons. And so when we don't have communication, and we cannot have communication with something that is silicon-based, that is widely different, and so on, and so on. But let's think about this a little bit more, the dark forest theory and all of that, which Katarina talks to. No, I'll take a blink. Notice that it is not really, and it really isn't, it is not really good or bad. But if you want to survive, you know, like they say in closing, that there are powerful civilizations throughout the galaxy. You don't know when you will meet one that is vastly more powerful than you. You don't know when one of the civilizations that you have let be has made a massive technological breakthrough. This is something that happens all the time. Notice how much we have advanced in only 100 years. And 100 years on a global time scale is nothing, because it takes hundreds of years to travel from one part of the galaxy to another, bound by our laws of physics. What does this mean? You cannot predict if today a civilization that looks in the 21st century will tomorrow make a breakthrough and be vastly more powerful than you. If you're interfering, you're far more likely to manipulate them, to exploit them, to get them onto your side, or if they're too much of a threat, to wipe them out. Not because you hate them, but because you simply prioritize your own survival. I think this is clear. Okay, let's talk about opening opposition in this debate. So opening opposition tells you the best case. You're gonna help them cure cancer. And I really think this is like their best case scenario if you are both like good at the start, and maybe sometimes you will cure diseases and so on. But notice how hard it is for you to understand something completely foreign, something that is not only like a different biological mechanism, but has a completely different society. Notice on another planet, something similar to ants has evolved to be the dominant species, completely different kind of culture. Maybe they don't have gender, maybe they don't have like different communities, maybe they are immortal, maybe they have short lifespans, maybe they don't value life. One thing that we know most, like all organisms probably value is survival somewhat, and will feel fear because evolutionarily they have to. So notice this, there are many ways you can harm them unintentionally. Like it's not just like magically giving them diseases or whatever, but it's taking away things that you do not know how to value. If aliens came today, maybe they would tell us there is no God, that is dumb. It makes no sense. Here is mathematical formula. But notice how much that will strip away from so many people on the planet. Strip them of meaning, strip them of a religion. We do that to other species, not because we are bad, but because we don't understand them. And that is the awful thing here. We will have unintended consequences of all of this, because these are life forms that are not only different animals to us, but that have evolved on a vastly different planet in a vastly different way.
Opening. They will stop fearing us when we live in contact. It's unlikely that there's a civilization of fully evil people, only evil individuals. We're okay with imprisoning all species in first, the troll of fear, genocide.
Thank you. See, this is the problem with them. They imagine a space Hitler. They use our way of thinking. They think like bad will manifest the same way it does on our planet, dictators, countries, fascism, and all of these things. But probably they are vastly different. At best, maybe you do take out a space warlord or whatever, but at worst, you take away much, much more. But here's the thing, and this is how we weigh over the opening sides. Notice, opening government, we will be good, universal human rights. They're opening up. I mix it up. These guys, Zagreb, they will be good. These guys, Oxford, they will be bad colonialism 19th century. Why do we weigh over them? Well, first, one thing we have to notice is that they're good responses to their case, which we haven't heard from CO to our case. First thing. But secondly, notice the certainty of this. We don't know how humanity will look in 400 years, but we know that humanity will by first be interested in self-preservation, that it will be afraid of the vast and empty cosmos that is populated by more powerful beings. That is what we know. But notice also on intensity. Notice how, like at best on their side, sometimes you cure cancer, but at worst on our side, like notice that they would sometimes do that themselves over time, but on this side, you force them into slavery, into occupation, you destroy their ways of life. Incredibly proud to stand for Star Trek.
Thank you, Governor Whip. And to conclude the debate, I invite Opposition Whip.
Okay, quick preamble. I want to thank the Israeli Debate League, not just for the opportunity to develop at this game, but also for the endless support and care you give outside the rounds. Hadara, Miriam, Anna, Annie, Yael, Jess, Gabby, thanks for the help. Lucy, thanks for the narrative, for being my rock, and for taking pictures of rocks. Jalila, thanks for all the above, and even for teaching me some Gen Z lingo. I do hope we Aura farm this final, and you all should come to Dutch Euros. It will be, how do you say, goated.
Ayal, thank you for trusting me in African currencies. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The first and easiest way we'll win the round is by explaining why conflict exacerbates, and why that should matter more than anything else in the round. The second way we'll win it is by explaining, one, on the question of whether humans do good or bad. There's a very simple question that top half gets into, which a very simple mechanism from extension solves. Firstly, what happens with regards to conflict? We give you 3 types of conflict that exacerbate. The first is something that's on clash with staging. which is that weaker, smaller, less developed nations will want to attack or strike back against humans. Now let's talk about what these smaller nations interpret this as. We tell you something very simple. They are right about the sense of capacity that humans have with the assumption of great capacity. Obviously, there's also an incentive to try and avoid conflict if you can, if you don't want to endanger your own civilization with these magic doers in the sky. The problem we identify is that if you do not give them technology, if you refuse to collaborate with them, that is the point at which the interpretation becomes they don't want us to learn about them. They don't want us to understand what we can do. They want the ambiguity because they want to gather info before we invade them. This is where they launch missions against your ships in the sky. This is when they kill your commanders, which means you have to strike back against them. This creates conflict you did not want to happen, and conflict that was too risky otherwise. Secondly, we tell you that bigness decreases risk. If Leo is right, and Top Half agrees that big empires anyway want to attack, we say the fact that you can absorb them, yes, even if it's exploitative, I'll explain later why it's not, but even if you absorb into yourself some planets, the fact that you're bigger means that there is more strategic ambiguity on who from the biggest empires is going to win the fight. This decreases the wish for aggressive empires to fight you rationally. They have to sacrifice much more doing so relative to the fact that they can go to areas that are uninhibited, or at least empires that are far less big and populous than your own in order to attack. Third, we say that the planets that have scarcity, the planets that you will, in the absence of a human intervention, allow to proliferate in the regions, tend to be more evil planets. Notice that opening opposition mentions in response to opening government that there is a comparative problem with whether or not regional rule in these planets is just as bad. Issue. Opening government is right that prima facie we should assume that people who are in these planets have more empathy towards their own citizens. They may be dictators, they may not. We give a stronger reason for why the comparative is so terrible. It is because if you have had scarcity to begin with, developmentally, that probably means that your disregard for human rights is intensely more political than an empire that is rich, an empire that, as Ayal explained, is not one fueled by scarcity, which outlines the problem and the certainty of the problem with the dictator comparative from opening opposition much more plainly. From opening government much more clearly. But I want to just weigh where the chance that this conflict exacerbates in any one of those three invasion chances should weigh over either the development that opening opposition can offer or the exploitation that opening government discusses. The first way that is a radical idea in this round is that humans should be obliged towards themselves. The people who make this decision are the leaders that are sending commanders out to space. The people who command those who will produce arms for them. The people who use the money from those who work in factories. Their mandate is to do whatever safeguards human populations most. Neither opening half team explains a risk that's posed to humans by this that is nearly as big as getting into a conflict or safeguarding yourself from a conflict with a big empire or being attacked and having your ships destroyed by a smaller nation. We think that at the very least this principal obligation outweighs above. Second, it is more long-term. And the reason for this is because on either side of the top half teams, there's likely an end to the harms they describe. Opening opposition probably sees at some point a development of these planets anyway, even without the assistance of humans, as opening government points out. With opening government, humans probably leave at some point, once they've extracted the resources that opening government said are most important in that planet. There's no reason for why they would want to destroy it, given we explained that extraterrestrial, that additional destruction only antagonizes the people of the space too much. Conflict erodes the planet in ways that are unmanageable and inescapable, because the power of a human empire or of bigger empires is likely to destroy entire ecosystems, is to destroy and disseminate chemical weapons that will destroy the livability of your atmosphere, destroy livability resources. That means a critical mass of the population cannot live anymore because you don't want your aggressor to be able to strike back against you. The capacity for long-term the destruction of these peoples is much more likely when conflict arises. Lastly, they affect populations that would be unaffected on our side of the house. Humans that would be unaffected by the discussion of weaker countries in top half. The fact other planets that don't have resources but might be strung up in alliances and forced into conflicts are also going to be hurt. Next question, are humans good or bad? How do they impact these areas? Top half comes to the following question. OG says the problem is that you don't have physical attributes that make you similar. OO says that's fine, but the fact that you have an entity that is also sentient means that emotionally you're able to relate to them more. We resolve this in 3 key ways. First, you ought not believe humans are empathetic, just that they want to maintain an international reputation with other collaborators, with other planets, with planets and empires that are stronger than those they're invading, that don't think they will be aggressive towards them, that think that they're trustworthy. Top half.
You can't fit aliens into human models of international relations developed in the 70s that don't even work in us. Your case has a myriad of unfounded assumptions like how aliens think, how they organize, all of these things.
So the problem is that every team in this debate assumes they have a political structure that's somewhat akin to us. The fact that they have their own leaders, their own state system, means that the rational incentive I identified is similar. But I now also want to respond to the good claim made by governments that opening opposition doesn't respond to, which is that your lack of understandability of the aliens is a separate problem from just incentives. First, I'm gonna be so real. AI. You know what ChatGPT can do right now when you give it a bit of data? You know how much data we'll have by satellites surrounding these planets, by ships that go around and are able to survey. The ability to generate new systems, new civilizations, to interpret what cultures and systems exist there because of the data collection that you aggregate in order to analyze systems and reasons why these structures exist probably means that we're able to create these understandings. But secondly, notice that the motion necessitates that if we're able to travel, we understand the chemical and biological conditions of these ecosystems. We understand the exact concentrations that make it possible to fly a man into that planet or to fly a ship there, which means that our capacity to extrapolate about this planet is very big. Closing opposition.
Thank you, Opposition Whip, for that speech, and a round of applause for all those speakers.
Thank you to everyone for a fantastic ESL final. We will be having all of the teams outside of the room down there, which two of these teams already know about, at 15:22, so in 15 minutes, we will be announcing the emotional march of those teams. Thank you.